Hello, everybody. It's Chrisiosity here, and I am here with my Culture Club friends and a special guest. So I'm going to let everybody sort of introduce themselves. We can start with Rune. You want to start?
Ah, my name is Marcel. I go by Runin on the internet, and I am very grateful for your invitation to talk about uh, my own countries, my own languages, revolutionary poetry. Thank you very much.
All right. And how about Kristi?
Hi, I'm Kristi Winters. I have a YouTube channel here on YouTube, and I don't know that much about poetry, so I'm not going to be much of an expert tonight, but I'm fascinated to be part of the show, or to hear the show that I'm part of, actually.
All right. And Hank.
Yes, hi, Culture Shots. Also have a YouTube channel, and my channel is a bit about combining politics and culture. But I love your list that you have. A lot of it was new to me. I knew the names, but I haven't heard not all the poems I know. So I'm very interested in tonight.
Yeah, great. So, for those who don't know, we have a playlist that I had sort of put together, and my general focus on the playlist when I put it up there was looking for poets reading their own poetry in their own voices, because I think that that's the ideal way to take in a poem. Um, and that playlist goes all over the place. So, as poetry tends to do. Um, and let's see, today's hangout, we are dedicating it to Dareen Tatour, who is a Palestinian poet who is doing 5 months now, I believe, or has been sentenced to 5 months. I'm not sure if it started. I think it did, um, because of her poetry, which was deemed, uh, I don't know, inciting by the Israeli government, because the that's their level of fascism that they're comfortable with now, is jailing poets. So while on one hand, I'm going to say that I agree with them that poetry often is and definitely can be a very revolutionary art, and is something that you should keep your eye on. It's usually the worst thing you could do would be to actually try to suppress it and suppress the artistic impulse in a society. So that's my sort of opening spiel. I don't know if anybody has something that they'd like to start out saying about their experience of poetry, or their experience of how it works in sort of more radical ways.
I can talk a bit about that if you like.
Yeah, great.
I gotta say I had a look at your list, but nothing on there rang a bell for me. Like I knew some of the names like Bukowski and so on, but my let's say my area of layman's expertise, my area of being a dilettante is German poetry because German German language classes for Germans in German school are not just about grammar and stuff like if you would learn a foreign language, but it's also very much about the history of German literature and so on. So, of course, poetry plays a large part in that as well. So, that is basically where most of my contact with our topic tonight started out, just in German literature classes in school. And I also had German literature as a part of my what's the English word for that? Of my high school graduation classes. A levels, maybe in the USA, community college would be a good point of reference of comparison. So yeah, that is where I got into contact with revolutionary poetry as a whole, as a topic. Hello?
Yes. I'm still there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think Kristi, yeah, she just wasn't sure if you were finished. That was all.
So, how about Hank?
Yeah. I also see that some strange reason YouTube has decided to log me in on my personal account and not my channel account. So I'm going to log out in a moment and log back in. But first, I studied literature. So I have quite an extensive background in poetry. My specialty is theater, not poetry, but I do love the modernists. And I saw some modernists standing there, T.S. Eliot, among others, and William Butler Yeats, some of my favorite poets. So yes, I do understand the poetry to a certain extent, and also if you look, for instance, at William Butler Yeats, his role in the liberation of Northern Ireland, some of the poetry he wrote on Easter Rising, it's very revolutionary. So that's interesting. Some from a political standpoint, but also some from a moral standpoint. So, and I love the collection you have now, which is also, I think, on different levels revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, when I first put it together, I was just putting it together based on what I love and what I became interested in poetry in high school. I had the benefit of having a teacher that really understood and loved poetry himself and was able to teach it to his classes. He was quite brilliant. He also wrote his own poetry. So I developed, some people geek out over Star Wars. Some people geek out over Lord of the Rings. I geek out over poetry so that I'm prepared to embarrass myself today. Now, I know that Kristi was saying that she doesn't have a lot of exposure to poetry, but I don't know if you wanted to say a little something about the topic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess my exposure was cultural and through education, but I didn't do like a literature degree or like really focus in on poetry. When I was doing my undergraduate, I did British literature, but that was more prose, it was more rather than poetry. But growing up, I was, taught the sonnets. And I remember the poem, the one about what is it? The fog rolls in comes in on cat's paws or something. I remember those kinds of things in the classroom. So I understood iambic pentameter and rhyming scheme and things like that. But my exposure to a more, you want to say, revolutionary poetry would probably have come first from like being exposed to Public Enemy when I was growing up. And so it was more in the culture that it was in the classroom for me. And that's why perhaps too, like when we got I watched probably about a third of the playlist, and I have to say, like I started at the beginning and I went like for the first 5 or 6, and then I started to see what else was down there, and I tended toward veering off toward like the poetry, the more live hip hop poetry jam type of poetry, and I went through a lot of those and like cried. So that's my in is far more. Now I'm not saying I am like an expert in rap or hip hop critique or anything, but certainly Rage Against the Machine, something like Killing in the Name of, is something that I would think of first when I thought about like a revolutionary poem more than anything that I'd been taught in school. So that's where I'm coming from, very lay perspective.
Sure. And I know I did put I put Tupac is in there.
Yeah, I saw that.
A couple other. I didn't want to just. You could put any number of rappers or artists like that in there, and I sort of resisted the urge to do that because I do want people to expose themselves to something that's a little bit new. You know, many of us have heard, and rightly so, and enjoyed those kinds of, you know, hip hop artists, but this is about a little something different. So
Yeah, and the spoken word stuff has its own beat and rhythm, but it's really gives the artist a very different freedom, you know, to change things up and move the words around that you couldn't necessarily do in a song. Yeah, so I mean, I thought some of the beat poems or stuff was some of my favorite stuff. I felt, maybe I'll talk about this a little bit later on too, but I felt it's very, very much like a 20th century, more European type of style that you had on that list, and then more of an African influenced American, more of like like the Holly McNish stuff seems to me, even though it's in English, a lot more hip hop than, you know, some other things that could be done very traditionally. But we can, I'm sure, get into that as we move on.
Sure.
What I liked is that you see the different eras, you see different styles of performing the poem, which I think is interesting. Also, you see almost you see accents, because many people think accents as something set, but many accents they're almost gone now. If you listen to the 1950s and 60s,
Yeah,
that's
very
not.
much so.
And I think that's fascinating because it's an entire different rhythm. So it's almost going back in time, and seeing how it worked according to their heads. Yeah, exactly, because you know how they pronounce it now. So how does the rhythm work?
Yeah, a lot of German poetry from before the 19th century, before one kind of German was elevated as lingua franca across Germany. A lot of German poetry doesn't even work, doesn't even rhyme when not spoken in dialect. Like, for example, Goethe, biggest German author of all time. He came from Frankfurt. He spoke Hessian dialect. Some of his poetry doesn't rhyme when not spoken in Hessian dialect. So that's something that got lost.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Wordsworth. When Wordsworth went to London, because they were puzzled, because they were reading his poetry, and they said it doesn't rhyme. And then Wordsworth came to perform his poetry, and this, oh, okay, it's a different kind of English. So now it does rhyme.
I think they use that with Shakespeare, actually, to reverse engineer pronunciations of words they're not sure of through the rhyming scheme.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how they know.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I love it already.
I know it's a little off topic, but Byron, his poem, which most people call Don Juan, should be called Don Juan, because that's how he pronounced it. So he pronounced the name wrong. So now if you're either going to have to pronounce it wrong or get it wrong. So
I'm sure there are people who insist on calling it Don Juan. I'm sure of it. But yeah.
But that's, you know, neither here nor there. I guess in talking about poetry, and the first reason that I think that it is politically radical is it's so inherently democratic. You know, you need nothing to be a poet.
Yes.
There's absolutely no barrier to to entry. If you can speak a few words in any way, then you can go on to be a poet and to express yourself that way. So it's really,
yeah, sorry.
And even that wasn't always the case. Like, poetry for a very long time was absolutely the domain, the privilege of the upper classes, and poetry being done by everyone was already in itself a revolutionary act at some point.
But it's also one of the oldest forms, because if you look at it used to be, before we had written text, you had poems, and in the poems they used to tell each other's stories, and they rhymed, so it's more easy to remember. So even though I think writing new poetry to writing poetry in that sense was upper class, but telling poetry and telling your children who then told to their children, I think that's centuries old.
Yeah, you're right, of course.
And yeah, so because of that, I think, and there's something just inherently, I'm going to use the word inherently, just standing all by yourself up there with nothing backing you up and just speaking your personal truth. It takes a great deal of courage. And so when people start doing that, in for a penny, in for a pound, that's what I say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do we want to maybe watch
one
a
of the
couple?
things that
Sorry, no, go for it.
Yeah, because I was just going to say one of the things that I noticed, also comparing it and maybe setting it up as a contrast to next month's hangout about Hamilton and the use of language in modern rap. One of the things that I noticed was that the 20th century stuff that you had in the beginning, its language is very straightforward and plain. There's a lot of, it's considered extra points in hip hop if you have double entendres or if you use words in clever ways. And so coming out of Eminem's album, which I had been listening to all weekend, what I was struck by first was actually the accessibility of a lot of the say modern poetry or 20th century poetry that you included, because it's just it is using words to tell a story. It's painting pictures, but it makes it then really accessible to anyone who can understand English, which you can't do going into a lot of hip hop stuff, because there's so much cultural reference and particular even time period references that if you're 20 years away, you won't know what they were talking about. So that was one thing that I did want to mention about the kinds of language, the use of language as it's evolved.
Yeah. Unless you're talking about someone like, for instance, T.S. Eliot, who's very into exactly what you're saying, which is very interesting, because T.S. Eliot is about all those references and all those. It goes back to the Bible. It goes back to the classics, etc.
Yeah.
So there
a classical education shout out, as it were.
That's
like, hey, I went to Oxford.
Exactly.
Oxford in the house.
And for instance, Yeats. If you read some of the things by Yeats, Yeats is very much into. He was very into the occult. So there are a lot of references to that in there, which is also, well, that's an entire hangout on itself. But no, but mostly, yes. If you look at it from the 1950s and 60s, it becomes like this civilian movement almost. It's becomes more, like you said, Kristi, accessible. But yeah, so there are some exceptions in the list.
Certainly, and let's. I wanted to, I guess I'll put on first, I'm going to put on the poem, The General. I don't know if anybody saw that by Carolyn Forche. This is the poem that, I'm going to try to, hang on. Give me a chance. But this is the poem, when I think about, if somebody says political poem to me, this is the first one that comes up. This is a strictly, or almost strictly, documentarian poem where she was a poet who had gone to El Salvador, I think it was, on a humanitarian mission. And because of her poetry and the mission that she was on, the general there became convinced that she was some sort of spy, and he wanted to send a message back to the United States and was hoping that she would, transcend that pass that message along to her keepers. So let me pull that up. And I will screen share.
If you need a co-host, although I have to say I'm not on the sound system, but if you need backup, let me know. But I think you've got it under control if you've got the playlist. So
yeah, if you want to just talk while I just sort of set it up, and then I'll screen share.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you were saying? Like, it's hard for me to like put you on the spot and say, can you give me an example of it? Was it Eliot, you said, of the sort of wordplay? I mean, I get references, to like Greek myths or things in the ancient world. Shakespeare, of course, is filled with those. But I'm interested in kind of like an example of how he would use the language to do that.
Ooh, well, I did do a course on the wasteland, but that's 15 years ago. So,
Okay, fair. Yeah, like I said, I'm putting you on the spot here,
yeah,
but I'm just
that's no problem.
curious now.
If you're interested in poetry with a lot of wordplay, would suggest the metaphysicals, but that's ancient poetry. Ancient, a bit. John Donne, for instance, the entire idea of the metaphysical poets was to cram as much intent into each poem, if I may put it bluntly. But I think it's beautiful poetry. But they were incredibly on the play of words. But yeah, and T.S. Eliot, the problem with T.S. Eliot, it's so dense. It's so incredibly dense that it's for me hard. I get the gist of the wasteland now, but yeah, it's a bit too long ago. But if you,
check that out, Kristi. I'll see. Is that enough?
Right. Yeah, I think so. So I believe I'm screen sharing. So let's see if this works.
Yeah, you are.
All right. Ta-da-da. He's just now. Why isn't this playing sound? Can you guys hear it at all?
I can hear it.
Yes.
Yep, I can hear it.
Okay, I can't hear it for some reason, but that's all right. Should I start it again?
It is a bit quiet.
Yeah.
So
still pretty quiet.
Still
pretty quiet.
I'm trying. Let me see. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing, so just so you know. I'm going to try.
Let me see if I can help out here. Did I just...
Okay, I'm going to open where I feel safe.
Did that get any better?
Yeah, that seems to work.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. So now I don't know. I'm not going to hear it, but I've heard this poem multiple times before, so I'll just let it play. And you guys can tell me if you want me to stop or pause.
Well, yeah, why don't you give it like... we'll jump in after a few seconds again just to make sure there's no fair use problems.
Okay.
And so we'll just let you know when we're ready to stop.
All right.
Then...
Yes.
All right.
I have to say, it's pretty quiet for me still.
I can't see it now. Is it me or?
Oh, I put it on
full
screen. Oh. Okay. Is that better? Is it back now?
No, it used to be there, but I don't see. I see it in your little screen, but I don't see it. Or am I now? Oh, wait a minute. If I do this, yes. I'm sorry. It was my mistake. I'm new to this.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. All right. I'm
actually... Let me see. What was her name again? Do you know what number? You've got so many on this list. Carolyn Forche?
Yes.
Carolyn Forche? Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to
41 on the list.
I'm going to try streaming it to my using my Chrome thing and then put my speaker up there. So hold on.
Okay.
See if that works any better. Turn this up. I got the black screen now and then with somebody in it. So we're just going to have a few moments of silence here while we actually get to the video. Oh my goodness gracious. Go. Oh, I'm really far away now. Sorry.
and gentlemen, Page Beach Stage proudly welcomes Carolyn Forshea.
You're clipping, Kristi.
Oh, okay, it's too loud?
Yeah, it's too loud. I just think we can do it with Christiosity, because else, if you're clipping, that doesn't help it, I think.
Okay, well, I could barely hear it on hers.
Okay.
I don't know how much better or worse the sound quality is.
All right. Let me see. What is the chat saying? Can they hear it?
Yeah, maybe ask the chat which one's better. Get an outside opinion.
Yeah, could we try yours first, Christiosity?
Sure.
One more time.
One of them is a four-letter word that is banned by the FCC.
I hear one. It said the loud one. I think some clipping is fine. So okay.
Yeah, because I can just pull my mic away.
Yeah. In that case, the chat has decided.
What has the chat decided?
They said some clipping is fine. Please do the loud one, they said.
All right, rock on. Poetry. We ready to go, guys?
Let's go.
Okay, adelante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Walker, there is no path. You make the path as you walk. I'm going to walk, okay? I'm going to open where I feel safe. This isn't a safe poem, it's a documentary poem. It takes place in El Salvador in 1978.
So that's the story you were just saying about her experiences, right?
Right.
Okay. That was me fair using it.
All right.
Yep.
The Colonel. It has an obscenity in it. It has two obscenities in it. One of them is a four-letter word that is banned by the FCC, so I cannot read his poem on the radio. The other obscenity will occur to you as it goes along. That is not banned by the FCC. In fact, it was promoted and supported by the United States government. The Colonel, what you have heard is true. I was in his house. His wife carried a tray of coffee and sugar. His daughter filed her nails. His son went out for the night. There were daily papers, pet dogs, a pistol on the cushion beside him. The moon swung bare on its black cord over the house. On the television was a cop show, which was in English. Broken bottles were embedded in the walls around the house to scoop the kneecaps from a man's legs or cut his hands to lace. On the windows there were gratings like those in liquor stores. We had dinner, rack of lamb, good wine. A gold bell was on the table for calling the maid. The maid brought green mangoes, salt, a type of bread. I was asked how I enjoyed the country. There was a brief commercial in Spanish. His wife took everything away.
So this maybe would be a good point to stop and reflect. So, Christiosity, you want to take over?
Yeah. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me unscreen share myself.
No worries.
Okay. I think I'm not screen sharing anymore. All right. So you can see how carefully she's setting the stage. One of the things that is very important in poetry of today is this use of specific detail, which it really grounds the poem in reality. It makes it much more real, much more present for the person. So that is one of the key things that she's doing here. She's just making sure you understand, you know, the banality of this situation. You know, the daughter, she's doing her nails, and the wife is worried about her dinner party, and they're watching some TV. So that sort of is going to set up what goes on afterwards.
Yeah, what I really like about the start is that it's not. It does not introduce where you are. It only shows that it's. When it says on the television there was a cop show, it was in English. then you know that it's special for it to be English. So now you're wondering, okay, where is this? Which I love. Because, well, she said it in the introduction here, it's in El Salvador, but you can't see that in the poem directly from the start.
Also, it from the start implies that what's getting described is something maybe familiar, but something that should be like common knowledge or something like that. Like first sentence already, what you heard is true. Like the reader is expected to have some familiarity with the topic already. Is like, am I wrong? Or
nope, I think she's setting up sort of a relationship with the listener right off the bat is where I feel it's like as if she's talking to you as if you were her good friend, and she's saying, yeah, what you heard is, I know you've heard the rumors and it's true, and let me tell you about it. So it's creates an intimacy.
All right, should we go on then?
Yeah.
There was some talk then of how difficult it had become to govern. The parrot said hello on the terrace. The colonel told it to shut up and pushed himself from the table. My friend said to me with his eyes, saying nothing. The colonel returned with a sack used to bring groceries home. He spilled many human ears on the table. They were like dried peach halves. There is no other way to say this. He took one of them in his hands, shook it in our faces, dropped it into a water glass. It came alive there. I am tired of fooling around, he said. As for the rights of anyone, tell your people they can go fuck themselves. He swept the ears to the floor with his arm and held the last of his wine in the air. Something for your poetry, no? He said. Some of the ears on the floor heard this scrap of his voice. Some of the ears on the floor were pressed to the ground.
Sorry about the clip in there.
No, go ahead. All right.
That was the twist. It's like a twist of the knife, I think, with the ears.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, the ears are people.
Yeah.
They represent people, and in the end, there enters a bit of magical realism into the poem, where the ears also on their own as ears behave like people.
Yeah, but also the some of the ears on the floor caught this scrap of his voice, which I think it's the...
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's and this is about the El Salvadorian Civil War. Is that correct?
I think so. It's in 1978, I think she said this was. So that's right around there, I think, unless I'm completely confusing my history.
Yeah, it's a year later. A year later, is in 1979. I just looked it up because I'm not. I think the Salvadorian Civil War is a bit more a bit more known about it in the United States than it is in Europe. But yeah, 97. So that's a year from now. So what you're seeing now is I think suppression, oppression, and you see it also echoes. You see what is going to happen in a year if you look at 2020 hindsight. This kind of reminds me, and it's also because of the ears. But I wrote an article about Nobel Prize winner Le Clésio, which is a French author, and someone asked him what is the function of a writer, and I think this applies to all culture and all cultural expressions. And he says a writer is a sentinel of society. It needs to hear the thunder in the mountains, and it needs to warn the villagers that a flood may be coming. So this poem is warning for oppression, warning for the abuse of power. I think it's very powerful.
And it is specific to the time and place, obviously, but as you say, she makes sure that it is sort of generally applicable.
Yeah, exactly. And also by making everything so explicit, by having someone there who warns with his eyes, okay, don't do anything, which is very relatable. She makes it very relatable, although she places it exactly in El Salvador.
Yeah,
I think it's
also the nice contrast between setting up the appearance of civility, as in civilization, the dinner table, the bell, all of these sort of trappings of normal life, and then it's contrasted against this, as she said, offense, the second offense that she mentioned in her setup to her reading.
It did, and I must say, this is the lowbrow person in me. It did remind me of how do you call this? Universal Soldier, the movie. Anyone seen that one?
Oh God, yes.
You have, and actually, it's a very good scene, and believe it or not, with Dolph Lundgren, where he has a row of ears on his neck, and it's of the because he used to do that in Vietnam, and it's a really strange, intimate moment of in a absolute B movie about human suffering, and they're using actually the same imagery as they're using in The Colonel. Which is weird for me. It's really strange to see those words collide.
Well, if I ever watch Universal Soldier, I'll have to look. They may have just.
When in your life would that ever happen?
I don't know.
Actually, it's not such a bad idea to watch it, because of course it's a schlock, it's action movie schlock, but also in a kind of subversive way, like RoboCop, for example, as well.
Yeah, but RoboCop is better directed, but still.
Yes, of course, but it still has an appeal beyond the Van Damme and the Dolph Lundgren and so on. So but it's not a bad movie. It's an okay movie.
But it's an interesting image, and I think what usually happens is you have a writer, and the writer is usually reasonably adept at literature, etc., and they put these little things in. And later you have a director who just did commercials, and he's like, "Okay, we're going to shoot this." And I think the meaning is. So I'm wondering if the original writer of Universal Soldier knows about this poem. It's an interesting question for me, but a little diversion. Sorry.
Does anybody? Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we're going to each pick a poem to show, then just let me know, and I can keep doing my sidekick role here if you guys want.
Oh, sure.
I think that's a good idea. If we just sort of pick one and go with it.
Okay. Shall I do the next one in that case?
If you could first tell me the title of it so I can cue it up while you give the background, that would be almost professional.
Yes. Okay. Great. I need to the poem of Dylan Thomas, which is a bit in the. I forgot the name now. Let's see, Dylan Thomas poem. It's the first sentence.
Just talk a little bit about it. I'm looking for it. So
it's interesting. If I may make a little bridge from Universal Soldier to Independence Day. They stole a line. The first line is stole it from they stole that from Dylan Thomas.
Do not.
He said, "We shall not fade into the night." You have the speech by the president, which is 90% Henry V, which a lot of people don't know. It's once more. It's Saint Crispin Day speech, and he steals a little bit of Dylan Thomas there, and I thought that was very interesting. But are you ready, Kristi?
I think so. Now I haven't tested the sound out on this, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I can always turn it up more, but hopefully this should be just about right. Okay, here we go. This is Dylan Thomas. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. My mic is really far because it's by the speaker. This is Dylan Thomas reciting his Villanelle, Do Not Go Gently. And so, here we go.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. The wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
I love this this poem. What I like about it, and I'm really curious what you think, why you picked it, Kristi. But the poem is almost symptomatic how he lived, Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas did not live to be an old man.
He was heavy alcoholic.
He was an alcoholic, right? Yeah, and he died, I believe, in his early 40s or late 30s. And it's rumored, and it's not confirmed, that his last dying words were, and I need to quote this: "I've had 18 straight whiskeys. I think that's the record," which is humorous.
But also
that's not serious, right? That's a joke.
No, that's not a joke. It's not confirmed, but it's
it would fit into character.
It's
apocryphal, shall we say?
Yes, that's a great word to describe it. But he was a raging alcoholic, and you can see him. I think you can see him wrestling. I think with life, with non-acceptance. So for me, that plus I love the way he reads his own poem. I think it's really impressive.
He was almost more famous for reading poems than writing them, because he had an extraordinary voice, right? Yeah. And he was very theatrical, to the point where there are some that would say, or who were of the opinion, because art is subjective, that it's too theatrical. It was too over the top. Whereas you'll see most poets don't prefer more conversational level speech. Whereas this is obviously a performance. This is obviously, he is, as you said before, performing the poem. And I just think that for him, that's a stylistic choice, and just part of who he is. And damn it, if I had that voice.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely great. A tip, maybe, I don't know if people have read Under Milk Wood, which is a radio play of his, which is absolutely great as well. Phenomenal. Just a tip. But yeah, his voice is absolutely great. It's a wonderful, the timbre.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else has something to say about Dylan Thomas?
No, but if not, if thinks about, well, actually, I have a suggestion for a German poem, because I know it's pretty short, and it's got the translation underneath.
Oh, nice.
We wanted to, but no, I mean, it's a classic, isn't it? I mean, it's
yes.
It's a piece that everybody knows. It's seeped into so many cultural framework in the English-speaking world. I mean, I can't imagine that doesn't have resonance in every English-speaking language, country.
It's also one of the few those statements that gets attributed to Shakespeare a lot, which isn't really the case. I saw someone walking with a T-shirt in which it said William Shakespeare, and that just really ticked me off. But that's just wrong.
Take that shirt off now. Take it off. Yeah. Take it off.
Yeah. I think that's how I could go to jail. I think that's just ripping it off. No,
I'll be there for your defense. I'll
great.
be like, dude, come on. It's a crime.
Yeah, that's a crime. That's a crime. I think he printed himself just to piss me off.
Yeah, so I was going to suggest. Oh, sorry. No, I didn't want to run.
No, go ahead. I was going to ask you about your poem.
Well, I was going to ask if Rune had one in mind. Otherwise, the one that he had from Keenster, kennst du das Land, wo die Kanonen blühen?
Yes.
We could do that one.
Yes.
If you wanted. And it's very helpful because I already watched it, so it's in my history, so I don't have to find it. Okay.
Actually, maybe that one would be better because a lot of the watchers probably will not understand German. If Chrissy could put it into her screen share and put the subtitles in English on, maybe.
I thought I could throw out the lines, pause it, and throw out the translation.
Oh, like that.
All right.
Yeah.
You guys ready like that? Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so here we go.
Kennst du das Land, wo die Kanonen blühen?
Oh no, what happened to my subtitles? Oh no, what happened to my English subtitles? There they are, but they're not working now. I don't know why. Well, anyway, do you know the land or the country where the cannons... Actually, Rune, you're going to have to help out now. Where the cannons bloom. So either of us can do it, but you might have to do it, actually.
Du kennst es nicht. Du wirst es kennenlernen.
You don't know it? You will learn about it. And Rune, jump in here anytime if you want to correct my translations, because actually without my subtitles, I'm screwed.
I'm watching you. I'm watching you. I'm not leaving you.
Dort stehen die Prokuristen stolz und kühn in den Büros, als wären es Kasernen.
Yeah, I'm lost.
There, the office clerks stand proud and keen inside their offices as if they were military barracks.
Dort wachsen unter Schlips gefreiten Knöpfe und unsichtbare Helme trägt man dort. Gesichter hat man dort, doch keine Köpfe. Und wer zu Bett geht, pflanzt sich auch schon fort. Wenn dort...
Sorry, that was too many lines. Can you
that's all right. Under every necktie, there are soldiers' buttons sprouting. And everyone wears invisible army helmets there. Everyone has a face, but no head behind it. And if you go to bed, you're already procreating for the fatherland. The fatherland is implied, but you already start to procreate as soon as you go to bed.
This is very German.
Yes.
Yeah, it was written during the 50s, I want to say.
No, during the late 20s.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, that maybe was when it was recorded. Okay. I have the subtitles up now, so I can help out.
Pflanzt sich schon fort. Wenn dort ein Vorgesetzter etwas will und es ist sagt.
Sorry, when wants something superior in this country?
No, when your boss wants
zu wollen.
Yeah, go ahead.
When your boss wants something from you, and it is his job to want something from you.
Right.
Steht der Verstand erst stramm und still. Die Augen rechts, mit dem Rückgrat rollen. Die Kinder kommen dort mit kleinen Sporen und mit gezogenem Scheitel.
Sorry. That was, maybe just read it out.
All right.
Die Kinder kommen.
This is chaos!
Sorry, this is harder than I thought it would be. Yeah, it's harder than I thought it would be because when I hit pause, it has a tiny delay in it.
The verse goes when your boss wants something from you and it is his job to want something, or when your superior wants something from you and it is his job to want something from you, then first your oh god, now I'm forgetting it myself. Then first your mind then your mind first stands at attention, and secondly it stands silently, your eyes to the right, and your spine bends over.
All right, so I'll play.
Dort mit kleinen Sporen und mit gezogenem Scheitel auf die Welt. Dort wird man...
Oh, dang it, did it again. It's got that stupid delay. Then the children there come into the world, means to be born, with tiny spurs and straight partings.
Sporen und mit gezogenem Scheitel auf die Welt. Dort wird man nicht als Zivilist geboren.
No one is born there as a civilian.
Dort wird befördert, wer die Schnauze hält.
And only
Kennst du das Land?
And only those who...
Es könnte...
Ah, dang it! It's really hard to hit the pause button. It's really hard to...
Kristi through the decades in a shouting match with Erich Kästner himself.
Yeah, so then he's about to say, do you know that country? It could be fortunate.
Glücklich sein. Es könnte glücklich sein und glücklich machen.
It could be fortunate and make you fortunate.
Dort gibt es Äcker, Kohle, Stahl und Stein.
There you can find fields, coal, steel and stone.
Und Fleiß und Kraft und andere schöne Sachen.
And diligence and power and many other nice things. They say affairs, but I say things.
Selbst Geist und Güte gibt's dort dann und.
And you can find there even mind and goodness from time to time.
Wann? Und wahres Heldentum, doch nicht bei vielen.
As well as true heroism, but not too often.
Dort steckt ein in jeden zweiten Mann.
There in every second man a child resides.
Das will mit Bleisoldaten spielen.
That wants to play with toy soldiers.
Dort reift die Freiheit nicht. Dort bleibt sie grün.
There freedom does not mature. There it stays infantile. Translation.
Was man auch baut, es werden stets Kasernen.
Wherever they build, it is always military barracks.
Kennst du das Land, wo die Kanonen blühen? Du kennst es nicht. Du wirst es kennenlernen.
Do you know the land where the cannons bloom? You don't know it, you will learn about it. So the trick was I had to hit the screen to activate the screen before I could pause it every time I wanted to pause it. That's what I had to learn. So
I love the frustration which really grabs the poem. Every time you scream, it just adds to the poetry.
That's great. Sorry, that's very much a live show, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the fun, right?
Yeah. But yeah, that's a really powerful poem. So I'm gonna cough. So I'm gonna mute myself.
Yeah. The thing is, which is a kind of hidden bonus, is that poem. The title of the poem is a spoof, even of an old classical poem by Goethe, by Germany's most famous author, who wrote a very sappy, very corny poem about on one of his travels to Italy that was called "The Land Where the Lemons Bloom." And Kästner took that and made it into "The Land Where the Cannons Bloom."
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yes, and I could talk about revolutionary poetry in Germany all day, because there are even 3 distinct periods, literary epochs, periods that are basically all about the revolution in Germany. First, the so-called Sturm und Drang, which was a kind of special period inside the Age of Enlightenment, where the authors who later would come to found the German classical period were in their early careers, were still young and very much still rebellious. Then, of course, the so-called Vormärz and Young Germany. Vormärz literally translates to pre-March, which is a reference to the March Revolution. You all probably very likely have heard one of the most famous examples of Vormärz revolutionary poetry already in your lives, because the Song of the Germans, of which the third verse is today's German national anthem, is basically the most famous example of Vormärz revolutionary poetry.
Are you going to sing? You're going to sing, aren't you?
No.
Come on,
I'm not going to do it.
Sing.
So even the verses, the verses that are not sung today as the anthem, were even more revolutionary than the part that is still sung, because, as some of you might know, the poem and the song start with Germany, Germany, Germany above all, which sounds bad, especially it sounds bad since the Nazis became very fond of that for all the wrong reasons. But at the time when Heinrich Hoffmann von Fallersleben wrote that in 1842, I think.
There was no Germany, right?
There was no Germany.
Yeah.
Germany was just a loose confederation of independent states, and to say Germany, Germany above all, sticking together.
Sort of like is that sort of like an earlier version of America? Fuck yeah.
No, they imagine that if America, fuck yeah, was written during the Civil War, when there was no one America.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's
the context. Sorry.
No, if I make a comparison, it's like now saying, because now we also have different states in Europe. It's like making a pro-EU song, so to speak.
Exactly. Okay. Basically, the first verse goes, Germany, Germany above all in the world, as it stands together to protect and to spite the outside world inside these geographical borders, above all in the world. And the main reason why it's not sung anymore today is not that of the establishing nationalism, but those geographical borders in the first verse are not really modern anymore. Like half of Europe would be really pissed off if Germany would still sing that as national anthem.
Well, yeah, especially because like you had to give up half. Poland would have to give up half its territories, right?
Yeah, half its territory, like more like four-fifths of its territory.
Oh, all right, a lot.
Also half of the Netherlands, a good chunk of France, Denmark. Denmark wouldn't get off unshaved as well. So yeah, that's not really modern anymore. Yeah, and
polite.
The second verse is a bit sexist in this day and age. So there are good reasons why we only sing the third verse, but the whole song is basically the best example of revolutionary poetry from the pre-March. And the pre-March ended in 1848 when the March Revolution was sadly crushed, which then was followed by the epoch called Young Germany, Junges Deutschland, that still had all that revolutionary fervor, with the added bitterness of the revolution having failed. And if you want to, I'm gonna give some recommendations. If you want to see how that played out, how that sentiment influenced the arts, the literary arts in Germany at the time, then and are also a film geek, then track down the movie Wojciech by the dream team Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski.
I've seen that one. Yes, it's
because that was written by Büchner. At the time, it was uncompleted because Büchner sadly died before he could complete it. It was completed then during the Young Germany period in the 1860s, and then Werner Herzog made a movie out of it in the 70s, I think. And that is basically the perfect representation of how Germany felt, of how German literary, of how German revolutionary literature felt during the Young Germany period, immediately after the March Revolution failed. That is, and you got to remember also that while the formats and Young Germany happened, it was in opposition to conservative literary literature, which was called Biedermeier. And Biedermeier has, to this day, at least in Germany, I think internationally as well, a connotation of being okay with the authority and being conservative. And so not only did the formats literature write against the state authority and against the social circumstances, but also against the whole other half of literature itself, which made it really a struggle back then. And of course, the third big epoch for revolutionary poetry and lyricism in Germany was, of course, during Weimar in the ramp-up of the Third Reich, which is where this example came from, Erich Kästner, Das Land, wo die Kanonen blühen, because Erich Kästner, in his biography, is really tragic, because Erich Kästner was one of the authors of the, I think, 22 authors who were burned by the Nazis in that famous night. You know the pictures in front of the Hirschfeld. Yes, in front of the Hirschfeld Institute, for sexology, where all the transgender and homosexual scientific research was purged, burned. And the thing is, most authors who were burned there had already fled Germany at that point. Hirschfeld himself was already dead, but he also had fled to Switzerland. Thomas Mann had fled. Tucholsky had fled. Kästner was not only in Germany still, because he had to take care of his elderly parents, he was there in Berlin when they burned his books. He was even recognized. Somebody shouted his name when they saw him, but he kept his head down and managed to like slink away, but he was there. He stayed in Germany during the Nazi regime in inner emigration. He was banned from writing, and he stayed there and basically only barely survived on charity, because he was not allowed to write. And then after the war, he made that recording that you just saw. So not only did he write it, but at that point he could put all his bitterness of having lived through that, the land where the cannons bloomed, into his voice. And I think you can hear it if you know what to listen for.
I definitely felt like I heard almost a disgust.
Yes, absolutely. And what's even more amazing about him, he also, even though he lived through all that, retained a certain kind of air of a kindly grandfather, because he also wrote children's books, like one of the most famous children's books in German, The Flying Classroom, is by him. So he was not only this revolutionary, this voice of conscience speaking out against the Nazis, he still also contained the multitudes to write for children, to write whimsy. And that is the reason why Kästner is one of my favorite German authors of all time.
I love your enthusiasm. as well.
Thank you.
No, but it's really infectious. I just now remembered that I believe 23 years ago I had this in high school. This poem
Oh, did you?
Yes. Considering we're neighbors of Germany, we have to learn German. I didn't learn it well, but I can understand it. Talking is a different story, but yeah, we had this poem, which I think halfway through the read-through, I was like, oh yeah, it's coming back. But yeah, it's no, but it's great. It's absolutely with the context you've given, especially when he wrote it in the 1920s, when Germany in the interbellum was not a happy place. Let's put it that way. Some great art was made. Same with cinema, but you can hear the chaos also in his poem. The chaos of which the country is in.
Well, he's clearly there's a lot there about sort of the fatherland, about procreating, and it feels like he's talking about people who are having children are basically having war fodder. They're
Yes.
giving birth to the next generation of dead.
Yes, it's about putting your entire life, even your private life, even your children, into the service of the state.
Yeah.
Which was a theme in interbellum Germany.
Not only then, it was a theme in all of Prussian history, basically. Because Prussia, that at that time was also the main influence in German politics in the interbellum before the Nazis took over. Also, where Kästner lived. Kästner came from Saxony, from Dresden, I think. That was part of Prussia at the time. Prussia was a militaristic, authoritarian state, and everything was subsequent in the service of the state. Subsequently to the service of the state. Yes.
This is what this kind of reminds me of. You had the father of Emperor Wilhelm. He was Wilhelm II. Was also King of Prussia, and he once threatened to invade the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm. He threatened. Yeah, he threatened to invade or invaded basically everybody around.
Yeah, exactly. But he said to our queen. Oh my God, what was her name again? Our queen. She said, my men are 7 feet tall, and she says, if we break the dikes, they'll still be drowning in 12 feet of water.
Yeah, they had no chill, the Prussian emperors.
Yeah, that's Queen Wilhelmina, by the way. But yeah, that was a bit of a neighborly fight. But it's absolutely great poem. You also had a German poem, right, Kristi? Or?
No. I was going to do a Holly McNish.
Okay.
Because I love Holly McNish. So, we ready to move on to mine then?
If I could throw a couple other things here, I think that it's one of the things about your story about him staying that's really powerful is one of the key ways that poets are political is simply in the sense of being witness. They are those who you had said earlier, Hank, about them sort of ringing the alarm bells, which they certainly do, because they can sort of you can feel these sorts of things almost on an intuitive level when you're living so deeply. And part of it is just seeing and reporting and being there. I'm reminded of a bunch of things, actually, really. I'm reminded of just so many poets of war, poets of revolution, poets of these difficult times. And there are, you are going to have more political poetry during those times, obviously, because you're not going to be writing odes to daffodils when those daffodils are being rained on by bombs, the bombs is what's going to come. It's going to go.
Which makes it extra heinous that while he was witnessing all that, he was not allowed to write about it.
Yeah. But to be there and to sort of to not, I don't know if he had the opportunity to leave, if he didn't, but to be sort of there and not leaving is in and of itself, there's something to that. There's something of the poetry of witness, and to survive it and be able to read his poetry afterwards with this new layer of understanding and insight from what he's experienced and what he's seen. So that's just something I wanted to say.
And
I mean, it's only your show, so
yeah. So I'm gonna say it, damn it.
Yeah, but I am German. I am good at invading other people's spaces with my German.
German cell phone.
Yeah, it's a German cell phone, but I must say that the Dutch colonial empire was bigger than German's colonial empire. So
oh yes, it's always about measuring at the end of the day.
I'm a man, so no, but to say that this is also to Marcel, who's always very hard on himself and his fellow German countrymen and countrywomen and everything in between, is that if you're looking for a country in the West, let's just go for the West. I'm not familiar with cultures. Not from the West in historical perspective, but to say that just Germany invaded other countries, I think Britain invaded.
Don't try to hog all the credit there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I think there are like 4 countries that Great Britain hasn't invaded. So yeah, and I think America is doing a bang-up job to try to keep up with our past.
Yeah.
So yeah. In in recognizing that we're all guilty,
Yes, everybody's grandfather is guilty.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, in America, you do not have to go that far back.
Okay. Was that the end of that one, or was there more on? Okay. Well, then I guess it's my turn. And this is helpful because I'm going to move us into like the 21st century. I'm going to do, I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, you guys, but I'm going to play a poem. It's by Holly McNish, but there's a video with it, and I've already queued it up a little bit to avoid some of that fair issue stuff, and I'll turn it off when her last line is spoken again. But the name of the poem is Pink or Blue. And it's a critique, it's a feminist critique of how society takes the exact same thing and presents it very differently depending on what color you are, or what color you're associated with.
And that video you linked was also very, very profound in its like visual language. So
yes.
I can just only recommend everyone to actually go watch the video, because it's not only the spoken word that makes an impact there, but also the visuals as well.
Beautifully done. So I'm going to do a quick sound check here, and hopefully I'm not going to break out everybody's eardrums. Pink or blue?
Hang on. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'll.
For a moment, I couldn't remember if that was part of the video or not.
Yes.
I was thinking the same. I'm like, is this part of it again?
Right. No. That's like performance art now, live behind it.
Yeah.
Give it context. All right, here we go. Pink or blue? Pink or blue? Go. Baby grows for blue with robots on. Baby grows for pink, no robots on. Baby grows for pink with flowers on. Baby grows for blue, no flowers on. Little pink picks a daisy chain. Great. Little blue picks a daisy chain. Gay. Little blue climbs a tree. Strong boy. Little pink climbs a tree. Tomboy. Pink falls down. Pink is given more hugs. Pink tears are loud. Blue tears must man up. Grow some bollocks, toughen up. Don't be such a blue.
Now blue hair is cut short, pink hair is let long. Pink is given toy dolls, blue is given toy guns. Pink is told to be cute, blue is told to be bigger. Pink shoes, no grip, blue shoes, no glitter. Now blue legs grow in hair and pink legs start growing hair. Blue is told it's manly, pink is told to shave theirs. Blue is shown as blood in action, films, fights, pride. Pink starts bleeding every month, told blood, shame, hide. Pink discovers lust, wrong. Blue discovers lust, nice. Now blue is called a player, but pink is called a sket. Pink is told they glow, but blue is told they sweat. Blue is told they wank, pink is told they sin. Or blue is called a pussy, pink is called a bitch. Now pink is told to be a lady, do not spit, swear, smell. Blue is told to be a man, do not cry or ask for help. Blue is told to marry, pink is told to make up. Is told to stay strong, pink is told to stay young. Blue is told to get rich, pink is told to want kids. Blue is told they mansplain, pink is told they gossip. Blue is told they're bosses, pink is told they're bossy. Blue is given breakdowns, pink is given Botox. Cunnilingus is censored more than rape scenes or blowjobs. Blue is told this makes a man. Pink is told this makes a girl. Babies born in naked flesh, welcome to the world.
There you go.
Wow. Yeah, it's still great. What struck me, I had a discussion recently with a friend of mine, and we were discussing rape scenes. And she's absolutely right, is that rape scenes are almost never censored. They're shown for dramatic effect, while love scenes are usually censored, which is absurd. It's same as violence. Violence is almost never censored, but lovemaking is. It's a weird. Yeah, but that's just one little thing that just really struck me now. And sometimes that's what poetry does. Yeah, but
one thing stands out, like.
Yeah, it just flashes, and that's why I think you should reread poetry. I did that once on. I was really into William Butler Yeats, and I kept reading his poems. And every time something new comes in, every time you see something different, because it's like what I think Christiosity put that in a tweet. She said, "Poetry is not something you gorge on. It's like a little nibble, and you just do a little nibble every day. But even if you eat the same thing, you get something different."
I was thinking of the poem stays the same, but you change.
Oh, that too. But that's with all works of art, I think. If I rewatch a film, bijvoorbeeld, after 10 years, the film can be suddenly it opens up and I see like all these different layers, or it becomes this tacky thing which I used to love and it's absolutely worthless.
Yeah, I killed my childhood.
Yeah, I killed it myself. I didn't blame feminists. I did it myself.
But what I like about Holly McNish is obviously she comes from her experiences are entirely, in her work conveys her experiences as a cis woman. She's got a great one called Embarrassing or Embarrassment, and it's about breastfeeding in public.
Oh,
I don't know that there are many poems about having to be forced by society to go into the toilets and smell urine and try not to hit your head on the toilet roll thing when you knock stuff over. And she's like just being fed up of having to do that in the toilets. And so, and she uses, again, like a lot of, wordplay, using the same word twice, but to mean two different things or to take it and stuff. And it's got a very kind of modern setup to it. It's got some beats to it. You got some anticipation of rhyme. And so, for me, it's like, it's kind of us making a transition over to Hamilton for next.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
On that, can I ask you to set up in a second number 29, which is Lucille Clifton, Homage to My Hips, because there's a great tradition of women writing poems about their body parts, that she sort of talks about a little bit here. And part of that is it's an expression of how many women have been taught to be ashamed of various body parts, or to when they're not ashamed, it's because they're sort of sexualized in a certain way. So just a woman sort of talking. There's another poem in here by Sharon Olds that she reads, which is just her talking about her breasts and the experience of her breasts over the years,
I was reminded, if I may intervene, one moment, I'm sorry. Absolutely right, but I was struck by another poem you also selected, which is one of the poems and which had to do with suicide by, what was her, by Anne.
Class?
Anne Sexton?
Yeah.
Oh, different suicide one.
Yeah. But if we're talking about shame, that was also a revolutionary act to write about that, and it's about women writing about their experiences, and I think they're more direct often, strangely enough, than the men in the way they structure their poetry. And I saw that before. I thought, okay, women are way more straightforward. If you compare most female poets to T.S. Eliot, to go back to T.S. Eliot, who like hides everything in different things. And it reminded me of what Hannah Arendt used to say when they were asked Hannah Arendt, "Do you want to be important?" And she said, "That's a very masculine question.
Yeah,
I want to understand." And I think a lot of female poetry is about understanding. It's about understanding themselves, but also explaining so other can understand, so other people can understand.
And I see this blatancy also in someone like Ginsberg when they talk about homosexuality, the experience of homosexual sex, right? And I think it's part of it is just this sense of, I know that this is foreign to you. So I'm not going to dance around and and hide it. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to put it in your face. I've had heterosexual sex put in my face.
Yeah.
As the norm. Now here's this sort of turnaround, and it's not going to be romanticized or made comfortable for you. It's going to be put in front of you.
Yeah, let me reframe it then in saying it's white straight cis men who like to be those are, and if you look at people of color, Ta-Nehisi Coates himself too, who writes beautifully, but he's very straightforward. He goes for the kill, because I think he doesn't. I think also because people of color, non-straight people, they don't get the chance to talk all the time. Just white guys like me to take up all the time.
So when I have your attention, I'm gonna.
I've got it's Lucille Clifton, right? You wanted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we done though with
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Okay. Hold on. All right. So of course I'm doing this on the fly in a very ad hoc setup. So I'll do a sound check here.
About cruelty or what I am capable of. When I wanted the roaches dead, I wanted them dead.
Oh, not the right run?
Not that one is the right one. That one's also awesome. But
okay, so do you want this one or the other one?
The other one.
Sorry, do you want this one or? Okay, I gotta go back now on my phone to your list. Is it right under? No, mine aren't numbered, so I just have to go by the title.
Oh, okay.
29.
And I saw hers first. That's all right.
Lucille Clifton. Homage to my hips.
Sorry, I laughed before, but that reminded me of my humps, my humps, my humps, my humps.
Yeah.
Also very direct.
Yes, sorry, it's taking me a little while to find it. I should just count down, but instead I'm scrolling down, for which I apologize. Do you want to set it up a little bit, Curiosity, what we should expect when we're listening to it?
It's a short and sweet. It's not and like you said, she is a very direct kind of person. She speaks in an easy vernacular. And she is very brave, very courageous. The short snippet of the poem that you had done before was really about it's her, how do I put this? She has this sense of humor, which is sometimes quite dark and sometimes very insightful and very dry.
Okay. I got it now. It doesn't have her name. It's called Homage to Hips.
Okay.
So I got it now.
All right.
I was looking for her name, so I kept going past it. But now we're set up. All right, so here we go.
I write a lot about body parts. She looked at her. What? Body parts? What? Well, the reason for that is because I am thrilled with my body parts, you know. And people say men don't write about body parts that much. Well, they don't have the thrilling body parts that I have. That's why. And I'm excited. All the women applaud.
She's so funny.
Yeah.
And also, I live in a culture where where you're supposed to be 18 to 20, and I'm not. I know you guessed that, but it's true. You're supposed to not have gray hair, and I love my hair. It's white, and I think it's wonderful. And you're supposed to be about 125, and I was born wearing more than that. Frustrating. So I like to celebrate the wonderfulness that I am. And this universal poem is called Homage to My Hips. These hips are big hips. They need space to move around in. They don't fit into little petty places. These hips are free hips. They don't like to be held back. These hips have never been enslaved. They go where they want to go. They do what they want to do. These hips are mighty hips. These hips are magic hips. I have known them to put a spell on a man and to spin him like a top.
That was it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Talk about performance.
Yes.
This is it's strange to compare her to Dylan Thomas, but they're both performance artists, which I think is great, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, but her style is obviously where his has a very theatrical style. Hers is sort of very
loose.
Loose and casual.
It's almost stand-up.
I was just about to say that actually. It's
funny.
She is a it's that timing.
Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
It's slam poetry. Like it's like a kind of middle thing between stand-up and poetry. Like you stand up to do poetry. Mm-hmm. Slam poetry.
Yeah. Slam poetry. We have some examples here.
I meant that the kind of performance she did for her own poetry had elements of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think also there is. Sorry, if I may.
Sure.
So, if you haven't been to the United States and interacted with Black women, or had an opportunity to meet Black women in Europe, like Black women have a kind of authority, like they have a kind of sense of themselves that I, as a white woman, envy, because, and I think it comes from the history of slavery, of determination and believing in yourself and keep moving forward. That, and I think it is also part of Black culture in America to have a sense of your own worth and to like not let people just put you down. And that's like, it's not only a defense mechanism, it's a healthy way of regarding yourself. And so when she talks about her hips, she's not complaining, like my ass is too fat and I can't, do this. She's like, these hips swing and they've never been enslaved. And she's just like owning her body and owning her space and owning, just like I don't have regrets. And that's so inspiring to see a woman who has that sort of confidence, because I think secretly everybody wants the confidence of a sassy black woman.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It's also pretty. It's also
You
pretty
just like want to
hot.
back up and be like, yeah, like feel the flames.
But also
also-
her hips have power over the men.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's again, you know, she can wield her power. Like, don't tell me I'm fat. Like, you don't know how much deck I catch with this ass.
I think that was Roon, and I think Roon was trying to say that. Is that right?
Yeah. I was trying to. I came closer to my microphone to say that kind of confidence is also pretty hot.
Yes, it's very hot.
Well, it's
Also in men, confidence, by the way.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
assholishness or dickishness.
but in men, this kind of confidence is kind of like presupposed. It's expected.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
they
also true.
There, when you deviate from that, you're the beta.
The cock.
Automatically, exactly.
But I think it's about groundedness. I think and being grounded and being understanding who you are and what your role in life is. I think in generally, if you're a man or a woman or non-binary or in between, if you're just grounded who you are, I think there's power in that. And I think the poem really talks about being grounded who she is, appreciating herself, her body, and just celebrating it.
Mhm. Which is a radical action in if you're living in a country that doesn't celebrate you because you're black, you're old, you're a woman, these are the things that they devalue, and you turn around and say, "Oh, you've got it all wrong."
Yeah, that's
Boy,
great.
you have it backwards. Because, man,
and tragically, a new example of this just happened this weekend again with Serena Williams at the US Open.
Yeah.
Where a black woman had to just assert her existence and was disrespected, sadly, for her existence.
Yeah.
Truth.
So we are way not there yet at actually putting those ideas into practice in everyday life, which is a shame.
It reminds me of the election. It reminds me of the election where I believe 97% of black women voted for Hillary Clinton, and I believe one who was it? Joe from Morning Joe said, with the new election, black women need to turn out more. So they win. Excuse me, how many percent of white women voted for Trump?
That's on us.
Yeah.
Trump's on us.
Yeah.
Trump's on us.
So that just really pissed me off. I'm like, seriously? What do you want? 104% of black women?
Yeah.
But it's in our culture, and it's so interesting that a poem on hips gets to the Grand Slams, to politics, and it's all in there. It's all in taking the power.
It's all in the hips. That's why they're so big.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all had a poem. I think it's a shame to. Because we've been doing this for an hour and a half, but I'm having fun.
Me too.
So maybe we could do another one, and I think you should pick Curiosity because it's your list.
Oh, she just did one.
I just did one.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, do you want to do another one, Kristi, or shall I? Or
how long are we going to go? Just so I know.
I would say that this should be the last one.
Okay.
If we're going to do one more, and
yeah.
Maybe we could even put it out to the chat. Is there?
Oh, that's very interesting. Let's ask the chat. Yes.
Yeah, the playlist is on Curiosity's channel, so you should be able to open up another window and read it.
Yeah,
and some random geek. Oh, sorry.
Yep. And if you can't open that up, just give us a poem. We'll see something we've never seen before. What do we care?
So what did some random geek say?
Well, he posted the playlist already in the chat. So
Aww.
yeah,
Thank you.
He's like so on top of things.
Yeah, he's and also tweeted it out. So thank you for that. The current let's see, the link to Curiosity playlist is about a third in the chat. So people, please tell us which one you want to do.
He's saying Joy Young, the queer hokey pokey.
All right, I'm looking that up.
All right.
First come, first served.
That's right. You got to be.
That sounds later because it sounds pretty hip hop. Yeah, beat poetry.
Yeah.
The one, if you guys have a chance to watch it, My Chinese by a Chinese American woman is amazing. It's long, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the name of it again?
The Queer Hokey Pokey.
Oh,
by
I
Joy
found
Young.
it. Got it. All right. Yep. Okay. Sound check. Well, hopefully won't be blown out.
My femme friend finally got herself a queer haircut. You know, the one where you have a half girl haircut with one section shaved, taking 1 foot out of heteronormativity like you're doing the queer hokey pokey. Trying to turn everyone else around. It made her happy and we knew it. We applauded her. She beamed about it. Her hair, her own queer bat signal in the sky announcing her lesbian arrival. Though she's been here as long as I remember, she finally felt super stripped of her invisibility, her remaining hair wrapped around her neck like a lasso of truth. She chokes out another gasp of, "I'm gay," when men come on to her, and they'll believe her now. She remembers 2 nights ago in a bar, ghost walking straight through the gay bar, being blacklight sensitive, only contextually visible. Illuminated when I or any of our other obviously queer friends stood close enough. And us leaving disconnected empowerment lines, linking the charge of her own voiced experience to what being queer is like. She sent me a picture of scissors sitting close to her scalp, ready to cut red wire locks as time ticks down seconds 3 before she feels she has exploded 2 into non-existence again 1. She snaps another photo to send. And we can all see her now.
It's really hard to break up the poems with commentary because you don't want to interrupt the flow, you know?
Yeah. Well, if you don't tell him, I won't.
Yeah.
We'll hope for the best.
It's a pretty bad audio recording of a video, so hopefully the sound waves won't be picked up by YouTube. But download this immediately anyway. I'll do that. So.
Yeah, that's what we need to do as well. Yeah. Again, it reminded me incredibly of the last poem as well. Taking control of your body and how you're viewed.
Mm-hmm.
It's but it's also in this case it's clothing like a form of or in this case it's fashion as a form of subversion and going against the status quo,
but almost a forced conversion in order to be acknowledged.
Yeah. Also that finally the guys believe her now, and before that they were like, she's adventurous. No, she's gay and she has to. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're it's why every different LGBTQIA, they all have their own flags, they all have their own iconography. It's this need. It's otherwise you become sort of assumed to be whatever the normal is supposed to be. The society's normal. You must be this. So in order to be visible at all, you have to make yourself visible. You have to put iconography out there, put these signifiers, the rainbow or the different colors or different kinds of hairstyle. And it is, I mean, how many as feminists, and most feminists are not particularly, they're not going in for that sort of butch femme look, but that is very intentionally the look that people who are enemies will come up with, because they want to talk about how offensive it is that there are women that are not following the rules of what girls are supposed to like and look like, and what their bodies are supposed to be like, and what their aesthetic is supposed to be like, which it's supposed to be like something that would appeal to men.
Yeah.
I'm doing like silent applause here with my hands, Kristiosity.
All right.
No, you're spot on. Yeah.
Which also again hooks back to the first to Kristi's poem with the Holly, what was her name again?
McNish.
Holly McNish, which also had exactly that topic. So I'm kind of starting to detect a theme here against about what particularly revolution is against these days in modern poetry.
Yeah, that's very like second wave.
Not in the stuff that I brought in. Mine was against state authority, against state oppression, and yours are all against societal oppression and marginalization, which is kind of makes me feel a bit like the odd one out again here.
Well,
I mean, I think that if I
and so part of it is just what we picked. So if we had picked Robert Bly, who wrote during the Iraq War, we didn't. So it's different, but this is poetry is a place where the marginalized can speak. You can speak from the margins in poetry. You don't need wealth, privilege, access to platforms. I'm working on a video now where I talk about how the platforming debate is sort of inherently confusing what's a property right with what's a speech right, and it privileges the privileged, those who do have access. But in poetry, it's the opposite. Anybody. You could do it on a street corner. You can do it in a bus stop, and it's all it takes is someone willing to put themselves out there.
Yeah, beautifully put. But it's also, I think part of that flexibility has to do with you can choose your own subject. You can go really personal, like the last couple of ones, or you can go broader. And I would like to go with the poem you chose, Rune, and also the first poem you chose, Kristiosity, in the Civil War in El Salvador, which is a large political poem, but made very personal.
Yeah.
Very true.
So
definitely a critique of state authoritarianism.
Yeah, but it's also a bit of an encouragement to Rune, as in you're not alone. There was another political poem.
Yes.
You're right.
Oh, and some random geek is pointing out that No Problem by Benjamin Zephaniah is another one. I'm not going to try to pick favorites. There are some awesome poems in here. And, I say that I didn't write any of them. And I think it's worth, every now and then. Poems are very short. Take a little listen. Just, it's cool. I encourage it.
Yay.
Yeah. And I think those are great closing words.
Before we close, can I set up for October? Because I did my homework well ahead of time this time.
Yes, please do.
Do you want to set it up? Because it was your idea. Just set up the idea, and then I'll tell people what to do.
Yeah, sure. Well, the entire idea of Culture Club is to see if we can add a little politics to our culture. And considering Kristi has, for the last couple of months, been preoccupied with Hamilton, I thought it would be great to have her host the show, which we were going to talk about Hamilton, and kind of like Hamilton, the age of Trump, in combination with what language is rap, what does it use. So that was the idea, and now
it works so well, like a part 1, part 2. I mean, this is very much like start with poetry and then get into hip hop. It's going to be a very natural transition. But to listen to Hamilton, I mean, anyone can listen to Hamilton and appreciate it just sitting down if you can catch it, as much as you can catch, because sometimes he does the lyrics are pretty fast. But if you understand just a little bit behind the structure of the music and the aesthetic of the music, then it's going to start to blow your mind. What I've done is I've already created on my channel a playlist that's called the Hamilton Crash Course. And it's the YouTube crash course that I gave myself when I wanted to learn more about this musical. So it starts off with some videos by Vox, and their series Earworm does some great stuff with hip hop. I would definitely recommend that. But I just pulled the ones that would be relevant. And in particular, it's how rappers rap, like the sort of the stanzas and the rhythm and the setup and how they use the beats in between. And then there's also one on rhyming, how rap is very reliant on internal rhyming schemes. And Lin-Manuel Miranda does that really well. So it's important to understand it in order to really appreciate what he's constructing here with words. And also wordplay and using words in the same word in 2 different ways or 3 different ways. All of that is kind of like the French court when being very clever, sort of in the, like 17th century, wit was considered very valuable. Here too, being clever with your words is like, gets you a lot of respect. And then I've got Lin-Manuel Miranda doing freestyle on Jimmy Fallon's show, just to give you a sense of how this guy can set up lines and just in the moment create rhymes and stories. And then I think after that, I've got him performing what ended up being the first song of Hamilton at the White House, because that should then be able to combine all the stuff that you've watched about learning how rap works, and then watching what Lin is like and what he sounds like, and then watching when he's putting it to work in his art. And after that, you should go listen to Hamilton. At that point, stop and go listen to Hamilton. It's available on Spotify. It used to be available on YouTube, but they sort of flagged it down everywhere. So if you don't have Spotify, Google Play or something, like, just find a way, get your hands on it. And listen, you're going to have to listen. It's 2.5 hours long, so you probably won't be able to listen to all of it at one go, but at least listen to the first 10 songs, let's just say. Let's get to the Battle of Yorktown for the show, and I can limit our discussion to that first part of it. The Battle of Yorktown is when obviously they win, so then the story changes. That's a good natural place to start. And if you really, really, really still dig Hamilton, you have to learn more. Then the playlist continues with advanced crash course. There's a guy who studied the musical score for Hamilton and the motifs, and he looks at how Lin-Manuel Miranda and the guys who worked with him, I can't remember all their names now, so I won't even try. But anyway, how they put the musical score together, because it is so beautifully constructed. The things happen for a reason, both musically and lyrically in this show. And if you can start to appreciate it, that's like starting to understand the architecture behind a really beautiful cathedral or building. And not only seeing the building, but understanding the genius that went into making it and appreciating it on that level. And that's really what I would like ideally for everybody. So we've got a month or something before we have the show. So you've got plenty of time to do your homework.
Yay.
Okay, I'm done now. I'm done. Yeah. I'm just so excited.
Yay. And we are I think it's a great companion piece to this one. And that's I think the thread here in what we hope to be a few more episodes of Culture Club, because I'm really enjoying this, is to try to see what is the revolutionary role, if I may pick it a bit broader, not just of poetry, but of culture and of cultural expression. because the first episode, which we did last month on my channel, was about the Laramie Project and how you turn tragedy into art and how art can then cause a movement, etc. So also a revolutionary act.
Yeah, and just if I can tie it together, I mean, Hamilton takes place during the American Revolutionary War, and hip hop is, got a great tradition of revolutionary thought. So like they go together. It makes sense to set up the story of the founding fathers using the language of hip hop.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
It's so cool. It is really cool, and it's a brilliant musical.
I'm just throwing this out because I've been reading the chat, and a lot of people are talking about how they don't get poetry, or they're not sure how to sort of interact or know what's good, what's not good, or what poets are doing. I did write a blog. It was supposed to be the first of two, but there wasn't a terrible lot of interest in people for it. But I did start to write about how you approach poetry as a listener, as a reader, and I will link that so that people can have sort of a crash course in some basic stuff.
Great. Oh, that's absolutely so nice. So people can grasp the medium and then read go through your playlist again, which is great.
All right.
Cool.
Educating. Yay.
I try not to do that, but sometimes.
So yeah, I think that's it. I think we set it up for next month. We hope to see you again next month, I think.
It'll be on my channel. Yep. My channel I'm hosting next time.
Well, Kristi, thank you, Rune. Also,
you're very welcome, and thank you for having me.
Okay. Well,
I think Kristiosity can do the.
Yeah.
All right.
Because she's the only one with the stop button. So.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Just put it all on me. All right. So, thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you to all our guests, and I hope you had as much fun as I did. And keep reading poetry, guys. Love you. Bye.